Good morning and welcome to our devotions for today, Wednesday. We have struck the middle of the week and we are plodding on towards the end of this week. And the end of this week will bring about the end of the season after Pentecost. This Sunday coming is going to be our last Sunday after Pentecost, and then we're moving into the season of Advent. And the last Sunday after Pentecost is normally referred to as the Feast of Christ the King, when all is consummated in that final moment of divine glory. And so we as church, we are moving forward towards that moment. But we won't get ahead of ourselves. Today we are here and we are just starting a new day, bringing about God's love, God's peace in our world, and finding ways in which we can journey on forward in the midst of these tremendously uncertain times. Trusting God, trusting somehow that God is able to bring us through all of this. And no matter what may be around us, no matter what the energies that are around us, the invitation for us is to go even deeper, dig even deeper, and bring that love up, bring that divine love and grace out into the world. For the world needs it now more than anything else. And that love resides within each one of us. All those of us who are conscious that love is within us, and we are being asked to awaken ourselves to that consciousness in order that we may be able to contribute to the much needed love in our world. So we all have a part to play. And the way that we are best able to play that part is if we nurture ourselves. If we go within, if we go to source and bring out from in that storehouse something new, something wonderful, something precious, the divine gift of God's love for the world. Remember that in the Genesis story, God says that it was beautiful. It was beautiful. And even in that moment, God continues to pour out that divine love, keeping it beautiful. It is beautiful. We have to know that it is beautiful. But it is the eyes with which we are being called to see. So this morning, as we go into our meditation, we take our breath and become center. And today we want to look not through our natural eyes, but we want to see through the eyes of our heart. So we need to take ourselves into our hearts. As we breathe deeply and we allow that breath to seep deep within us, down into the fibers of our heart, and enliven that heart, allowing it to be filled with light, that we may be able to see through our hearts. And as we see through our hearts, we see as God sees. We see the beauty of our world. We see the vastness of God's creation. As you look within your heart, just from within your heart, look at creation. Look at the beauty of creation. The forests, the waters, the landscapes. There's more of that for us to see. and what we may consider the ugliness. But because we focus on our minds, we see only the ugliness. And we fixate on that. And because we fixate on it, we see more ugliness. And after a while, we see nothing but ugliness. And so in our meditation, we come back to Source and we look through the eyes of our heart at the beauty. The beauty that is present around us, the beauty that is present within us. We look beyond the history, for yes, we can find all manner of data historically to justify our seeing the ugly. But there's even more data in this present moment that we can justify shifting to seeing the beauty. The ability to see the beauty is our choice. And when we see the beauty, we create more beauty. When we see the ugly, we search for even more ugliness. And we set ourselves on a path of looking for and identifying more brokenness. So we change. We choose to see the beauty, not disregarding the broken, but we choose to see the beauty in order that we may heal the broken. For we can't heal the brokenness by identifying the brokenness. We only perceive more brokenness. But we heal the brokenness by giving the brokenness the power of creation, the divine presence that brought it into being in the first place. And if anything can heal the brokenness, it is the creative energy that brought it into being in the first place. The creative energy that knows it in its wholeness. It doesn't have to imagine it. It knows it because it created it. So we join in that creative process of bringing greater energy, greater love energy into our world to bring healing, to bring love. And we place God before us. Go before me, O God, we pray. For in you I take refuge. Each day as I awaken, I pray that I may see and follow more and more with greater assurance the way that is set for me. In you, I desire to place my all. Assist me in this work of allowing and accepting, just as those of old who trusted you to lead them have done. Hear the prayer of my heart this day. Amen. turning our attention to scriptures. We read from Matthew's Gospel, chapter 17, verse 22 to 27. As they were gathering in Galilee, Jesus said to them, "The Son of Man is going to be betrayed into human hands, and they will kill him. And on the third day he will be raised." And they were greatly distressed. When they reached Capernaum, the collectors of the temple tax came to Peter and said, "Does your teacher not pay the temple tax?" He said, "Yes, he does." And when he came home, Jesus spoke of it first, asking, "What do you think, Simon? From whom do kings of the earth take toll or tribute? From their children or from others?" When Peter said, "From others," Jesus said to him, "Then the children are free. However, so that we do not give offense to them, go to the sea and cast a hook. Take the first fish that comes up, and when you open its mouth, you will find a coin. Take that and give it to them for you and me." Here ends the reading. My spirit rejoices. I keep the Lord always before me. You show me the path of life. I keep the Lord always before me. In the reading for this morning, as I reflect on this reading, I realize how important it is for us to keep the Lord always before us. And when we keep the Lord always before us, we see what others don't see. The little story that was told this morning in the gospel reading sets up the scenario with the temple folk asking Peter if his master doesn't give the temple tax. And Peter says yes. And you wonder why they asked it in the first place. Were they seeking something to have against him? Perhaps. But what is interesting is that Jesus, in his usual parabolic way, invites Peter to examine what just happened. And so he asks, who do kings tax? Do kings tax their children or do they tax others? And Peter says others. And so the message coming across there is, well, are we not all members of this Jewish family, this Jewish community? Why are we being taxed? But so that nothing could be said ill of us, go and, do the fishing thing. You'll find a fish there and you'll have a coin in this mouth. Go and pay that. When I hear this little parable, as it were, I realize how important it is to see through the eyes of the divine. Looking at everything through God's eyes. There's so much in our journey that we come along and inherit, and we continue it. And we never critique it. We just accept it. And I always find it interesting because I just love the sciences. And I always say to myself, if science were ever to adopt the attitude of faith communities, we would remain in the dark ages. Because science is always questioned. As much as we think science doesn't question, science questions constantly. Science is always pushing it a little further. What if, what if, what if, what if, what if? Whereas we in the faith tradition, we say, well, this is how we received it. This is what they used to do. And we must be faithful. So we become faithful to what they used to do and not the spirit of what they used to do. Science remains faithful not to what they used to do or what they thought or what theories they accepted. But science remains faithful to inquiry, to seeking, to searching. Something that's said to the faith community: seek and you shall find, knock and it shall be open. But we prefer to hold the tradition. And Jesus is in a way challenging the tradition in this moment. But he lifts it up. he exposes it, and then he moves along with it. We don't even lift it up. And we need to lift it up. Because that's what the divine grace is there for. And be honest, the science community probably uses the divine grace more than we do. We always tend to think that scientists are locked away in some laboratory doing some strangeness. When the reality is that at times they're in deep meditation, or they're walking a beach, or they are reflecting. And it is in those moments of openness to the all that is, even though they may not call it that, that great spurts of inspiration, not deduction, but inspiration comes into their hearts. And they resolve things that they would never have been able to do based on the tradition, that which had gone before. What more do we need to hear before we search, before we ask, before we knock? Why do we stand still? Why do we not lift things up and see what they're made of? And see if there's any way that we can move beyond this moment. In recent times, they're finding gospels that were hidden. Why were they hidden? Well, they were hidden because there was an effort to destroy them. That's why they were hidden. The church had decided that it was only dealing with these 4 Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And they were going to erase every other effort of sharing the story. Why that great threat? Why was it necessary to go after them? Why was it necessary to eradicate these other Gospels? That speaks of control. That speaks of only wanting one particular view or version of a story to be told. That doesn't speak of being open to what God is doing. That speaks more of man's inferiority, a man's lack of divine trust. And you would think that with all that is coming available, that there would be some interest within the circles of our tradition. But many of us hardly know anything of these Gospels. In fact, we've branded them with the name Gnostic, and everyone is supposed to be fearful of them and not go anywhere near them. You may even go so far as say that they have all sorts of evil intentions in them. Anything that would create fear, that would keep persons from asking, seeking, knocking, and just hanging on to the tradition. Even as the tradition takes a beating, because somehow it doesn't seem to answer many of the questions of our current time. Jesus said to Peter, "Tell me something. A king, does a king tax his children, or does he tax others?" Do we just accept traditions because they're traditions? Or do we keep asking? Do we keep exploring? Do we keep seeking to find out more and more and more, knowing and understanding and believing and trusting that the little self that we are really and truly, it can't contain all the knowledge, and we shouldn't pretend. But there's always more. And so because there's more, we need to keep asking and keep searching, keep knocking. Because the more we ask, the more we seek, the more we knock, the closer we become to the divine. And we keep the Lord always before us. Because as the Lord goes before us, He takes us into uncharted territory, not traditional territory, but uncharted territory. And we have to trust where we are going. We have to trust Him in what we are discerning and discovering. That's what makes that whole call to trust even so much more of importance. Because we are being called to places that we don't know. If we already know them, if it's already been trodden down, what do we have to trust? We can do it in our sleep. But because God is forever taking us new places, we find ourselves in that position where we need to draw heavily on trust, so that God may show us the path of life.